everybody, welcome back to the Vortex Edge podcast. I'm Jimmy on the mic, and I'm surrounded by Brennan and Chris, two of our instructors. And the setting, if you're watching on video, you probably already noticed, is a little bit different than the armory that we've been doing our sit-down chats in. Now, those types of podcasts aren't necessarily disappearing forever, but we figured, hey, we're Vortex Edge, we're all about shooting. We've got 6 full-time instructors here, and why don't we make our podcast involve more shooting rather than just conversation? So kind of the idea here, and you're going to have to bear with us a little bit. We're going to do our best to describe it for those of you who are listening. And then if you're watching on video, again, like I said, just bear with us because we've got new audio equipment we're messing with, cameras, all that good stuff. But we're going to be chatting, shooting fundamentals, skills, philosophies, all that jazz and more. And so Brennan and Chris, you guys get to be the first instructors as part of this guinea pig operation. Of course, I'm here with you though, so I'm just as much being thrown into the fray.
Probably gonna get let go, probably. So there's that. Thanks for the opportunity, man. It's really cool to be here.
I think we'll be all right.
Yeah.
Now today, let's just jump right into it, right, guys? Okay, so today I think we were going to be talking about pistols in particular. We're on the 50-yard range here. We're actually fairly up close to the targets. We're standing on the 7-yard line. And one thing that you guys talk a lot about, and also just kind of like part of the idea of this podcast too, is you're kind of just going to get to see behind the scenes of what we do when our guys are training, and improving their skills, getting ready for classes, getting ready for the competitions they shoot, whatever it might be. So one thing I hear you guys talk a lot about with pistol shooting is something called trigger control at speed. And it's a really cool catchphrase. Yep. But what does that actually mean? Why is it important to you guys and what you do? Who's going to start off with that? Was it Chris?
Yep. So I can kind of tell you like how I've evolved, even when I first got this job and everything before that, and how I ran my trigger per se, right? It was a lot of institutional kind of training, right? Marine Corps, policing, and all that stuff. I don't ever remember running the trigger any other way than like slowly prep to the wall and then apply the continuous pressure and just make the gun go off, right? So fast forward to, I started taking classes on my own, and then, I certainly got this job, and I tell the story all the time, I was shamed in shooting my first match, and I found out really quickly, dude, that ain't the way, to affect how you place at a match, right? It's great in getting all the alphas, you know what I mean? But that's not really the point of the match, right? I took a class from Matt Prank. I've been following Ben Stager and those guys, for the longest time. I've started training a lot with Brennan here. And the concept of, almost eliminating the trigger from the equation of like holding the gun and then making the bullet go where you want. And I don't mean to say like being careless with the trigger, but being less focused on this guy, right? And how it pertains to me holding the gun in space and being able to put shots where I want them, right? Yeah. And I mean, if you think back to the range session that we had, this all kind of stemmed from that range session where, man, we had some pretty cool revelations where we were able to just get you to hold the gun the right way, so to speak, and then just connect to the target visually, and then apply those shots where you wanted them.
It is a little almost counterintuitive. I don't know if counterintuitive is the right thing or right way to word this, but you hear a lot of people just super emphasize the trigger, and of course there's the debate about whether it's a press or a pull. I don't really care. I don't think any of us care because we all know what we're actually talking about in the end. But anyway, they emphasize that a ton. Now, I don't think that it's completely not important, but it seems to me like you guys place your emphasis, like so much of what you talk about, that I hear you guys talk about, that I actually hadn't previously heard people emphasize a whole lot, is the grip. And your grip can actually sort of, tell me if I'm explaining this correctly or incorrectly, but it can kind of make up for moderately crummy trigger pulls because what? You're just holding the gun better? You're not allowing the gun to move and be affected by little inconsistencies in your trigger press?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, the way we usually break down like the fundamentals of marksmanship talk, right, that you get in Intro to Pistol, Pistol 1, all those classes, is we essentially break it down into 3 main fundamentals, and then we have like a bonus one. So the 3 main ones are grip, sights, and trigger, okay? And then we also add in stance, right? Because when it's possible to add in a good stance, where your athletic set up to move, that's also super important. But when it comes to just hitting the target accurately and quickly, grip, sights, and trigger are kind of the main things we talk about. I also prioritize them in that order as well. So grip is the most important, then sights, then trigger. So sight alignment, and then how I press the trigger. My grip being the number one thing, because handguns are, they're so easy to manipulate and move kind of my point of aim, just because the gun is just kind of floating out here in front of my face. With a carbine, right, we have the classic 4 points of connection, things like that. But with pistol, it's just kind of floating out here. So if I can get to be to the point where I'm holding the gun consistently and in a way that's predictable for shooting, then that's going to directly affect my sights and what I'm seeing, especially if you're shooting a red dot and looking through that window, seeing my dot on target, and then with how I'm holding that gun, that trigger press, the way I do it, the way I interact with it becomes less important. So that's how I usually break it down. Grip first, that's going to directly affect your sights, and then trigger kind of comes in last. And kind of one of the ways that I usually, like an example I usually give in class is I will say, like, who's ever shot a Nerf gun before, right? And people are like, oh yeah, me, right? I'm like, all right, the last time you shot, your friend or family member, they're coming around the corner, and you just run the little cocking hammer or whatever, and you just shot him with a Nerf in the face or whatever, right? Super funny, it's hilarious. Did you think about your trigger pull? They're like, no. It was like, yep, you were pretty much just aligning the gun in the direction you wanted to go, and you pulled the trigger when you're ready to go, right? Handguns, any type of real gun is so much more accurate and precise. So sighting definitely does matter, but it's really just a confirmation of where it's actually aligned. What's actually aligning the gun, though, is our hands and our grip. And so this drill, even though it's called trigger control at speed, is really more of a grip focused drill, and it's diagnosing my grip. If my trigger finger is affecting my grip in such a way that it's overpowering, like my support hand, then we're going to see negative effects on target. So when we shoot this dry and then live, we'll kind of see that.
Okay. Well, you even got at something that I was going to address there, as I was mentioning. Chris right away started talking about competition. I know a lot of times you guys start talking about competition because I think you find yourselves in far more competitions than you do in gunfights. Because, well, this is other stuff we'll get into, I'm sure, in other podcasts, but you're smart, you avoid areas where you're going to end up in a gunfight usually in your day-to-day lives. Although a lot of the things that you do for competition can actually prepare you for a worst-case scenario where you do actually have to employ your gun out in a situation where you'd rather not be in.
That's a controversial
that is, basically, will competitive shooting skills get you kilt in the streets, as they say. That's probably another episode, or maybe multiple episodes, depending on the comments that we get.
That'd be the thumbnail.
Right. And then, of course, there is the Nerf gun fights. So this can also help you in your family house Nerf gun fights. So what do you guys have to work? Like, we're here on the range. Part of the reason we're here on the range is because we're going to show, like, when the rubber meets the road, right?
Yep.
How does one work on this? And what do you guys commonly see people coming in and making the mistake of doing that kind of like, what are the common mistakes or the ways that this gets messed up that people can work on?
So I'm very kind of dogmatic on how I write my dry fire plans, and I try to stick to them. So trigger control at speed and grip and what's come to be known as hand focus or grip focus. The way I've kind of worked that for myself, right? Coming from the background that I came from, I have to almost program myself to look in the right place, right? So have a good hard target focus on these targets. It's super easy. It's just I need to look at the A, right? And then I've done this thing where I hold the gun the right way, not necessarily get on the trigger, but I make sure that I'm holding the gun in a way where I'm seeing the dot interact with the A. And I do that for about 15 seconds, right? So I'm being really honest about it. Dude, am I truly overpowering my right hand with my left hand? That's like the number one thing. Next are like index points. Like, do I feel the gun on my hand where I have come to recognize that I need to feel the gun, right? And then secondly, as I'm holding it for those 15 seconds, and you said this, Brennan, so I won't like steal this from you or anything, but I'm watching the sight movie happen. It's not really a sight picture, right? It's a sight movie where I'm watching the A, but I'm just looking at the dot and how my grip and how like my tension affects the dot as I'm looking at the target.
Yeah.
Right. So and again, I'm being super honest, And then at the end of those 15 seconds, I holster and I just relax for 20 seconds. And then I do that for about anywhere between 5 to 10 cycles, or about 5 minutes a day. You know what I mean? And that just it just helps me to hone how I need to hold a gun, where I need to hold a gun, in order to see the dot interact with where I'm looking. Okay. You know what I mean? So that's step one. That was like non-negotiable. I had to figure that out before I ever started to apply like trigger control at speed, right? And so the next thing, when I actually move into like trigger control at speed, dry fire, I do the same thing, but now I'm going through the levels of contact with the trigger, and I'm just running the trigger as hard as I can, right? With the same level of honesty, right? If I run through a rep and I see my dot move to any direction, I need to be honest. Okay, what did I do? You know, did these three fingers somehow get interested in what the trigger finger was doing? Did I muscle something into the gun? And that level of honesty is required, in my opinion, because if all you're doing, if your measure of success is just hearing the striker go forward, then you're doing yourself a disservice, because you'll actually like solidify a lot of bad things that you'll absolutely see in dry fire.
That makes sense.
You know what I mean? Is that?
Yeah, so one of the huge advantages of shooting a red dot, as we know, but a huge advantage of shooting a red dot is that I can stay target focused, I'm looking at the target, and then I'm just watching my dot interact with the target, like Chris said, right? Yeah. So one of the best things about it, and the thing that we see the most in classes, is when students do make that switch to a red dot, or maybe they're trying one for the first time, they can like just right off the bat start explaining to me where the muzzle is actually oriented in relation to the target, without having to understand the relationship of iron sights and target focus, front sight focus, and all those things, right? So it's immediately apparent to them, oh yeah, if my dot is zeroed, right, when my dot moves down and left, my muzzle is moving down and left, and it's very easy to understand the correlation there. And so then that's where I think it's so easy to show them, all right, what can we do with our grip to change what's happening? So one of the most common things that I think people struggle with this is applying inconsistent grip pressures to the gun during the trigger press. All right, so we talk about grip a lot, right? And I'm not going to do a full breakdown, but essentially what we've got is our strong hand, so I'm right-handed, strong hand nice and high on the gun. I like to put front to back pressure on the gun with my right hand, and then my support hand comes in and it just really locks into everything like that, right? And I'm also kind of applying a little bit of front to back pressure with my left hand as well. And the left hand is applying an incredible amount of pressure on that frame of the gun. The right hand is not doing that so much, right? To me, the right hand's job is just to press the trigger. The left hand is to hold everything in place and to support the gun as it follows the path of least resistance. So what Chris was talking about, or what you alluded to, was when these three fingers down here get really interested in what the trigger finger is doing. What I think you were referring to there is when we pull the trigger, we have a tendency to want to pull the trigger with our whole hand, because
That's me all the time.
we don't like to isolate this finger from everything else. Just as humans, the way we're designed, we want to just do things with all 5 of our fingers, right? And so to try to isolate that, where I'm saying, hey, apply front to back pressure with these fingers back into your thumb, and then also run the trigger independently of moving those fingers, that's what's really difficult. So there's some techniques to help you kind of overcome that, but what's the basic and most simplest easy fix is take that left hand, put it on the gun, and just crush the gun with your left hand. And what's happening there is that these 3 fingers are just getting pinched right onto the frame. And if I'm not really squeezing with this hand, those fingers are just kind of floating, and this hand just smashes them in and then does not allow those to move. That way, then when I start to move my trigger finger, even if these 3 fingers are moving a little bit with my trigger finger, this hand over here is just completely overpowering any input that they can actually put into the frame of the gun that would potentially move it sideways like this. So if I pull the trigger, I got a clear gun here, so if I pull the trigger and no support hand pressure whatsoever, and I pull it with my whole hand, the muzzle's going left, right? When I add in all this pressure and do the exact same thing and pull it with my whole hand, I'm getting a little bit of movement left to right, to the left, but significantly less. And then if I apply some techniques to not squeeze with my whole hand, so for me that involves backing off the pressure, right? Back off the pressure there, and I'm just running that trigger as hard, as fast as I can right now, and I'm getting basically no front sight movement.
You're doing what a lot of people would call slapping the trigger, which a lot of people equate as
Slapping
if you slap
the
the
trigger,
trigger, you will miss.
Yeah.
Or jerking the trigger, right?
Yep.
And it's like, if you do that, you'll miss. And then their counterpoint to that is you got to be this thing like Chris was talking about, this real slow, methodical, which is great for just sighting in your pistol or something like that, where you got to be super precise and be hitting all in this really nice little tiny group. But when you get to moving and grooving and having to shoot at speed, then that's where that breaks down and it's less than ideal.
Yeah,
and that's true if you're not gripping the pistol hard.
Yeah.
Like, that does matter. And if you do slap the trigger, it is going to influence it, right? But our whole point here is, hey, grip is more important, so do that right, and then you can slap it.
The thing I heard that made this make sense to me was like, it only takes so many muscles to do this, right? But imagine all the muscle groups it takes to do this. And so in a tug of war, if you put them head to head, like, all of this should beat this out.
We'll beat the little tiny trigger finger.
So,
okay, got it.
When I understood that, I was like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. You know, it makes sense that I want to overpower, almost take this out of the equation, where I'm just releasing shots, and if I'm connected to the target and do good things with my hands, they're going to go right into the A zone.
Yep.
Right? So yeah.
Shall we play with guns?
Let's play with
We
guns.
brought some, and we have targets set up. Like I said before, we're at 7 yards. Did you guys say we're going to start off with some dry fire?
I would, yeah.
I think that's best,
All right.
right?
Let me. I'm going to play along with this. You guys can start explaining what it is we're going to do for the dry fire, but I'm going to make one of my mags empty.
I know it goes without saying, guys, but before you dry fire, just like Brennan showed, like make sure that you're pointing in a safe direction, and the gun is absolutely safe. Know the condition of the firearm and make sure it's empty. So,
you want to go into it?
sure. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna challenge myself here. I'm just gonna get into what I would categorize as like the hardest method for 3. There are technically 3 ways to do this, but we're gonna just show you the hardest one and just go from there. So the starting position is gonna be, my sighting system is already gonna be on the A, right? I'm gonna have my dot kind of interacting with, and I'm watching that sight movie happen. And as that's happening, I've got my ideal grip set, and I'm making contact with the front of the trigger guard with my fingernail. Now that doesn't mean I have positive pressure, right? Because then that's like muscular tension I have to overcome just to come back. And I find for me that leads to like moving the gun unconsciously. So I just kind of want to lay it there, right? And then when Brennan gives me the timer, I am just going to run through that trigger press as aggressively as I can without moving my sighting system off target.
Did you want a timer?
Yeah, if you want to run me.
All right.
So again, I'm making sure that my grip pressures are set, making sure that these fingertips aren't going to be a factor, and I'm just getting an ideal grip. And also, for me, I'm relaxing my shoulders, right? Because if I come up here with all this tension, in addition to possibly moving the gun with this hand, I can push into the gun and throw that shot even that much more. So I might turn a close Charlie into like a good delta low left, right? So I don't want that, right? So I'm going to relax my shoulders. There's my sights.
So the aiming is already done at this point. He's just holding that dot as close to what he wants to shoot as possible, right? And then when he hears that timer, he's just going to smash that trigger. Cool. And so now it's up to the shooter to say, hey, what did that actually look like? Tell me about any interruption you saw in that as close to perfect sight picture as you were getting.
Yep, so my dot rose a little bit as I was getting through the last little bit of the trigger press. And like you guys might say, oh, there's no way he can see that. Man, if you're connected to the target, I can still have an awareness of what the sight's doing without focusing on this little piece of glass, right?
Yes.
So for me, what I felt was that my pinky didn't have that pressure set all the way, so I just kind of pushed into it a little bit, and that's what caused the dot to lift on me. So I'm gonna, for the next rep, again, keeping things completely honest, I'm gonna apply that correction, and I'm gonna see if I can eliminate that movement for myself.
So you're feeling more pinky pressure now, right? Okay, cool. So same thing, he's got his grip set in. I'm giving him time for this, and he looks good, so I'm gonna beep it when I want.
Better. Yeah.
More pinky pressure was on your right hand.
Right hand, right.
Okay, your trigger hand, if you will.
Yeah, because this probably won't apply to everyone, but the way like my hands are designed, I almost apply like these 4 fingertips on my support hand as like anchors, and I'm anchoring them on the backs of this hand. So like if you, I probably already sweated through all my pro grip, right? but like it looks like this. Like I'm literally anchoring on my own support hand, and then I'm getting, and Brennan's gonna laugh and probably make a face here, but this is called a thenar. Look it up, Google it, right?
Okay. He loves his
Loves
And I
his
get,
thenars.
you guys can see where I have a callus going. I'm just, that's my focus, man. I'm getting that as far back and as high on the gun as I can. And that's what's really buying me that stability.
You were the kid in school.
Big thenar guy.
You were the kid
thenar,
in
man.
school who learned
It's also known lovingly as the drumstick of the hand.
You learned the term weenus, and you just used that in school all the time.
That one still bothers
Any
me.
funny sounding body part word.
All right. So one more time.
Yep.
Stand by.
All right, so
was
even less
really good.
moving on that one.
That was really good.
Yep.
Yeah.
So guys, again, I'm being really honest, man. You're not going to do yourselves any favors by watching that sight movie happen. Watch the dot lift or dive and be like, yeah, that was a good rep. Like you gotta be honest.
You have to be connected the whole way through.
100%.
A short note, if you're practicing with your friends or something and you guys are running yourselves through these, is what you'll notice is at any of our classes or something like that, our instructors will be up here on the line, and like Chris has his gun out and I'm standing to the side of him and I'm not watching the target. Obviously he was dry firing, but even if he was live firing, I'm not watching the target, I'm watching his front sight, right? Like on this drill. So I'm looking for any movement. And usually with somebody who is maybe just figuring this out, I'll see some movement and be like, yep, dot took a dive down, didn't it? And it's like, yep, sure did. And that kind of gives me some ideas of what's actually happening. I can then maybe help provide some sort of solution.
Right.
But then it also gives just kind of that second opinion on what's going on, because a lot of people aren't as clued in to actually reading their dot as maybe they think they are.
Well, usually their first couple of responses is, oh, that felt good.
Yeah.
Well, what did it look like? Oh, I don't know.
That's super important because we ask students all the time, how that shot look? They're like, oh, it felt great. Well, I mean, like, what does that mean, right?
Or they look at the target and they're like, oh, yeah, it was good. It was an alpha.
That's good. Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, oh, no.
I want to highlight something that you said when you were kind of running me through those dry fire reps. It's super important to not get super keyed into when the timer's going to go off, because then I think that's almost like, I'm all about cheating, but I think that's cheating to a detriment, right? Where I know that in that instant, right before the shot goes off, I have to have my grip set, because that's like the moment of truth has arrived. Whereas if you're doing this on your own, guys, like set a delay and give yourself a window between like 1.5 and like 3.5 seconds.
Yep.
To where anywhere in there that timer's gonna go off, and dude, you gotta be like ready to run through that trigger hard. I find that a lot of people will, like I said, key into the timer, and we'll just get into a rhythm, and then I'll pause it for a second, and they'll be like, "What the heck happened?" And then bam, and then that's when they'll throw the shots.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you're not being 100%. You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
All right, are we all going to try this?
Yeah. Really quick before we start, I just want to talk about kind of the levels of prep that we can get on our trigger before we start this, and that way everybody watching kind of has some context for what we're doing. So again, guns cleared out, right? So I'll just point this up at the sky. So with triggers, right, we're all running striker fire triggers. They all kind of work the same way. You have this mush at the beginning, we call that pre-travel or slack. Then you get to kind of this resistance right here. We call that the wall usually. And then from the wall, you add a little bit of pressure. The striker goes forward. Pretty much all striker fire triggers work the same way. So the 3 levels of prep that we usually talk about in class is 1, you can be prepped all the way to the wall, right? Applying like 80-90% of the pressure needed to break the shot. And then on the timer, you just press it the rest of the way. Okay, so that is one kind of stage. The second stage is where I'm just contacting the trigger and my finger's just touching the trigger. I'm not really taking any slack out of it at all. And then from there, we're just pressing straight through with consistent pressure at a consistent speed. And then the last one, which is the one that Chris actually demoed, which is the hardest one, not actually a realistic way to pull the trigger in my opinion, but he had his finger all the way out here at the beginning at the front of the trigger guard and was just forcing himself to really smash that trigger just to see if he could induce some sort of errors in his grip. So when we talk about that, we'll say, you know, maybe start prepped on the wall, start just touching the trigger, or start with your finger all the way off the trigger. That's what we're referring to. I think today we're actually not even going to do prepped at all, just because that's how most people already know how to shoot. We want to explore touching the trigger, smashing, and then as an exercise, coming all the way off the trigger and smashing through the trigger.
Okay.
Sound good?
Makes sense.
All right, so Chris, do you want to just run me first? That way we can kind of show what we're after, and then you can run Jimmy, and then I'll run you last.
Absolutely.
Right.
So Jimmy, when I have a third person here or like another student on the line, what I tell them to key in on is key in on the movement in the gun if there is any, right?
Okay.
I also don't just focus here on the gun, because there's things about like his forearm muscles, his shoulders that can tell me, give me some information. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I'll see a student like tense this up, and I'm like, where did the shot go? Low left? He's like, yeah. Yeah, dude, just chill out. You know what I mean? All right, so we'll give you a couple. Let's say 2 reps of just touching the trigger.
Just touching it?
Yep, and just remember, guys, another thing here is if you have a trigger safe, we allow you to have that much of prep done. But that's it, right? Beyond that, we don't want you applying any other prep. Just that safety on that trigger. All right? Are you ready? Stand by. All right.
All right.
Nice. Looks pretty good, right?
Yep. So it looked pretty okay. I mean, I'm getting really picky with myself. I saw it go a little down and to the left. But like pretty much stayed in contact with that letter A on the target.
I also just saw a little tension here, which might have been a little right hand stuff going on there. All right, are you ready? Stand by.
Ooh, that was
way good.
Stone cold.
All right, so let's now get you off the trigger, making contact with the front of the trigger guard there.
Okay.
All right, are you ready? Stand by. Nice.
Did it come down a little bit?
Straight down.
Yeah.
All right. Now Jimmy, keep watching. Are you ready? Stand by. All right, a little jumpy there.
Is there a little anticipation?
Jump the timer a little bit.
Are you ready? Stand by. There you go.
Chris
All right.
got you on that. He wasn't playing.
I'm just keeping him honest.
He wasn't playing.
If I were to hit the timer on that one, I'm not doing him any favors.
We ain't playing no games no more.
All right, cool. Make ready. Let's shoot this.
All right, here we go. Live fire. Hey, first time through, we take a little bit to get to the live fire. Who knows how these will all go? It's the first time.
Yeah, we'll get blasting earlier next time.
Just shredding.
Just open the video and we're just blasting.
Yeah.
All right, dude. I'm gonna run you from this way so we can see the timer. Jimmy,
I'm gonna eat some brass over here.
Yep.
So my goal for the reaction time, like I don't want to game it at all. Like my goal is always, I got to be under 0.2, right? Just because I know that my reaction time is good enough to do that. Some people might not be there right away, but the goal is to have as low or as short of a reaction time as possible. So I'm gonna try to keep it under 0.2 if possible, and that's gonna keep me really honest about reacting and not trying to game it at all.
Yep, and I'll also not be like right here where he can see my finger interact with the timer, right? I'm just gonna be out here, maybe back here, just right outside his periphery. All right. You want your muffs on? Or no?
Nope.
All right. Are you ready? Stand by. Just continuous beeps here. That was a 2.5. Your first one was a 16. Stand by. 18. Stand by. All right, and that was a 12. Nice work, man. All right, and then we can take a look at it. I mean, all upper A zone hits, right? No loss in accuracy. And would you say you were jerking the trigger a little bit?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm definitely running the trigger as hard as I possibly can. So this is my first shot, this is my second shot, third shot, fourth shot. That first shot healed the gun just like a little bit. Again, guys, like we're talking super small margin of error here, but if we were to go back to 25 and ask us to shoot head boxes, that starts to matter. As you increase the distance, obviously, margin of error gets bigger. So at 7 yards like we were, I would like this one a little bit closer down in there. But what this is showing me is exactly how, it gives me a chance to validate what I'm seeing through my sights. I saw my dot lift a little bit, and sure enough, there it is a little bit high. So, yeah.
And also, you're getting a start signal, so to speak, and reacting to that.
Yep.
And we're saying like below 0.2 of a second, you're able to apply a solid upper A zone hit. You know what I mean?
So it's really forcing me to actually slap the trigger and push it aggressively. And yeah, so we're
kind of retreating bill drill style for the for the
exactly.
streets. You know what I mean?
So we want to start all the way off now.
Yeah.
Just give a couple reps.
Give me a couple reps here. Yeah.
All right. So all the way off. This is really gonna kind of push that grip.
So remember, you had that dive a little bit. Give me that right pinky pressure on that.
Okay.
Stand by. 15. Stand by. 14. Stand by. 10. Stand by. And an 18. Awesome. I tried to get you on that last one. Good job.
I twitched a little bit.
Yep. So again, completely off the trigger. In fact, we're making contact with the front of the trigger guard on the inside, of course, and we still have really, really great
First
hits.
2 up here, actually 1 up here, 1 down here, and then 1 up here again. So,
Nice
yeah, I mean, I'm good with that, guys, right? Like, I've got, what is that, maybe like 3, maybe 4 inches total spread on the target. So, my grip is working good enough, certainly, to shoot alphas at 7 yards, slapping the trigger, and I'm getting away with a very, very good accuracy, requirement at 7 yards. So
Absolutely.
we'll see this later potentially, but as we move back, that group size opens up, and we might be able to get away with a lot more slapping the trigger and a really good grip than we thought we could to shoot, even really, really accurately.
Jimmy, let's run you through this, man.
All right. I'm Mr. Relatability here. We got 2 instructors who shoot all the time. I'm your regular guy who shoots occasionally, and that's what I'm here for.
All right, Jimmy, make ready. Oh, well, actually, we're going to run you dry, right?
I'll do the dry fire here first a couple times.
All right, so Brennan and I are going to watch your grip. I'll watch a little more distal from the gun.
Okay.
Look for anything.
Distal, look at you.
All right, yeah, man.
Finger touching the front of the trigger, right?
Medical terms are my love language, I guess. All right, are you ready? Stand by.
Ooh,
all right,
yep,
so
that went to the left and down a hair, but mostly left.
So if I can just dive in here, I think it started right here.
These?
I saw, yep. So it was just a tightening of these fingers.
Okay.
Right. What I like to tell people, what I remind myself that if there's any addition of tension in the right hand, that's your hand requiring more of you on the front end.
Yeah.
Right. So give me a little more pressure there in those right fingers. And of course the constant here is that the left hand is just crushing the gun, right?
Right.
So don't take out any slack at all.
Right.
So you just took out some.
Oh, yeah, got it.
Right there.
All right. Are you ready? Stand by. Good.
Good. Straight
That was
down
better.
6 o'clock, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that was better. I saw maybe just a little almost circle dance of the dot right around the A, but it didn't, it was better.
Yep. I think that movement stemmed from back here.
Okay.
Yep. What you're doing with your hands looked great.
Yep.
Maybe just a little too much tension.
A little
in your
here?
shoulders.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Shake it out.
All right, man.
Do one more of those?
Yep. Just touching the trigger.
Stand by.
Oh.
So you forgot to reset your slide, right? Or
Yeah.
reset the striker, but that actually looked really good.
But there was no movement there.
Yeah.
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 I'll give you an alibi because that looked really good. Do that again.
All right.
Stand by. Oh.
Not
I
bad.
like that.
Not
yeah.
bad. I think you
So
could still
It
be a
looked
little more
okay.
aggressive
Just a
on the trigger.
little tiny. Yeah, I can
but-
be more aggressive. I'm kind of.
But that looked good.
So here's the cool part about this. I noticed a ton of tension in here, in the forearm and in the hand, but it had no impact because you were doing the right thing with the support hand. So
Okay.
that's the cool thing about
That
this.
was what
Yeah.
I changed up after
Yeah,
the
yeah.
very first shot.
Very
It's
nice.
a lot more left hand.
All right, so we'll get you now making contact with the front of the trigger guard there. We'll run you through a couple dry reps. Stand by.
Not
Right.
bad. It came up, kind of like the gun dropped down.
Right pinky and right shoulder. So relax the right shoulder a little more. Give me a little more right pinky pressure.
Yeah, that's your whole right
Okay.
hand getting involved.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
All right.
See if you can slide your support hand up even a little bit higher. Yeah, you're gonna get better leverage.
It's a thenar. You got to get the thenar a little higher.
Thenar, get more involved. The left one, to be specific.
All right, stand by. Yeah.
That looks
That looked really
really
man.
good. Did it look good to you?
It looked similar to the last one, to be honest with
Okay, all right.
you. It came up a little bit, like the back side of the gun. I completely was thinking about thenars and not my right pinky, though, to be honest with you.
So here's something else. So now you're kind of starting to become accustomed to how the gun should feel in your hand.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you something to focus on. I want you to just say, Jimmy, connect to the target, and I want you to just really fixate on that A now. Okay? Fixate on that A visually. All right? Stand by.
That was it went up and down immediately.
Okay.
Yep.
These are things to work on.
Yes.
Yes.
One more dry. One
Okay,
more
all
dry.
right, all right, one
so
more dry.
I'm just going to walk you through it before you press the trigger. So go ahead and present to the target. Right now, I want you to feel a good amount of pressure in that right pinky. Okay. Your left hand, you should feel pressure all the way straight back through your hand.
There you
and
go.
then these shoulders need to just kind of relax and take a deep breath.
Okay.
All right. And then Chris, run them whenever you're ready.
Stand by.
That looked
really
quite a
good.
bit better.
Pretty slow on the reaction time, probably because I was thinking about a lot of other stuff. But it definitely didn't move nearly as much as the previous ones.
Cool.
Just a teeny little bit up.
All right,
Cool.
so go ahead and check that empty out there. Go ahead and make ready.
Okay.
We'll get you through some live fire here. Right, so nothing changes just because we went live, right? You have to have the same level of target connection.
Right.
All the same pressures that you just had in dry fire. A lot of people will be like, "Oh, it's time to shoot. Now I gotta get for real now." I mean, you should have been for real in dry fire, dude. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, all right, same thing.
Okay.
I'm gonna change up the time, so don't try to time it off my standby, okay? Because I'm gonna get you. All right.
So finger touching the trigger, right, Chris?
Right.
Yep,
Just
finger
touch
touching the trigger. All right. Stand by. Solid A-zone hit in 2-4. Stand by. Nice 2-2. Stand by. All right, so that was a 16. Fantastic. So when I start to, for me personally, when I start to push shots to the right, that's my right fingertips getting involved in the grip, right?
Bringing it over.
I want you to think north-south. So these pads here,
Yeah.
right? As opposed to like, kind of like how we
As
would
opposed
like
to my
grab a-
fingertips, more like the middle of my fingers,
Right.
pulling the
Yes.
gun
Yes,
straight
it's,
rearward.
it's almost like I'm pulling it into my own spine, so to speak, right?
Okay.
I don't
Pull it
want to
into
do
your right
this.
Enar.
My right. Okay, got it. My left enar is down, and my right. Okay.
But overall, those are great hits. But I want to see if we can't bring that group over to the left.
Whoever wrote the Marvel movies also came up with the body part named Thenar. Okay, so what am I still doing? Is it the same
I'm
level
gonna
of
give
prep?
you one more touching the trigger just to see if we can't correct that right deviation there.
So
okay?
can you feel that front to back pressure in your right hand now?
Much more now. I'm focusing much more on, like Chris said, the middle of my fingers rather than my fingertips on my right hand.
Fantastic.
All right, stand by. And then, of course, we are now centered in the A box. Very nice.
Yep.
All right, so
There you have it.
the
Little bit of
next iteration of this is just your fingertip resting naturally on that front of the trigger guard. Okay.
Okay.
And the same thing, dude. What buys me the performance in this drill when I have that level of disconnection with the trigger is I gotta have that north south, like non-negotiable.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Got
All right. All right, man. You got him. Stand by. Nice. Stand by. 2-0. Stand by.
Ooh,
5.
I anticipated it.
You kind of try to jump the timer a little
I
bit.
cheated
All right,
it.
give me one more here. Stand by. All right. So we're starting to. So our grip is kind of. We're starting to allow ourselves to lose
Lose that.
the middle pad, and then our fingertips are like, I gotta take over here.
It's super common. Wow, excuse me. It's super common as we continue to shoot and we're focusing really hard to start bringing in tension where it shouldn't be.
Right.
Right. And so something that Chris and I, if you ever like just come watch a range session with us, we're always fighting tension. Like, dude, relax, relax, relax. Right. Because
Or we just poke each other like, dude.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'll go to shoot a bill drill. I'm going to shoot 6 rounds, and I've got to count all the way up to the number 6. And I start off nice and loose, and I just start adding in that pressure, and everything goes haywire. So
Right.
I would venture to guess that's kind of what's going on with you a little bit. As you keep going, you just tighten up.
Probably.
But yeah, it's
All
something.
right, I
to
got to
work through
end on
in
an
dry
A zone one
Yeah,
here, and then we'll get over
yeah.
to Chris. So,
Well, also, I mean, they're not bad Charlies. They're really close Charlies, right? But
Close.
But we just need to just work on that. Just I think the three supporting fingers on the right hand is kind of where things are kind of
Okay.
going to right. All right, go ahead and get set. Get the aiming done. Cool. Now interact. Now just watch that A, and just respond to the timer. Stand by. There you go. Solid. 2-1. Stand by. All right, one more. Relax this guy here. Stand by. There you go. Nice solid A, man.
Yep.
All right.
I felt it on that one where you told me to relax.
Yeah. So guys, just to show you here, this is why it's so, at least in my experience, Jimmy, I don't mind
Sorry, here I am.
cut you off there. But this is right fingertip. I mean, it happens to me all the time. Brennan can attest to this. Like I'll just right, because I don't have enough tension here, and so that leaves the gate open for the fingertips.
Especially when we're asking for a level of aggression.
Right.
Yep.
Like I want to do all the aggression and not just like an isolated.
Well, that's really important what you just said. I've come to realize that like if we focus on the shot, if we focus on the recoil, our reward will be recoil management, but sometimes it'll be ahead of the shot, right? And also, I've found that, at least in my shooting, like recoil management for me isn't an active process, right? Like between shot, like consciously managing the recoil. For me, it's about the structure ahead of the shot, right? And doing things like, visual connection and making sure that I'm holding the gun the right way, so that kind of recoil management is just a byproduct because I've done my homework already, so to speak. You know what I mean?
You're also dealing with a smaller gun too,
Right.
so your fingers wrap
See
farther
that?
around the back of it than it does like with a full size grip. I have pretty big hands, but like I will put a bigger back strap on the back of my gun to give myself more space to where, if my fingers are wrapped all the way around the gun, like that's not great, right? So I want to like give my left hand room, right, and then not allow those fingertips to influence the gun.
I'm glad Brennan said that, so now everyone knows it's the gun's fault.
Yeah.
So
it's
at
the gun's fault, man.
7 yards with those drills, we had some in this 4-inch circle around the A zone, and then we had a few that were high and right. Kind of funny actually for me to be shooting high and right. A lot of times it's the little left thing. But so Chris, we'll have you shoot a few here, and then we'll see.
See where we're at. Yeah.
I think we got a little time here yet to maybe do our maybe moving back or whatever it is that you guys kind of progress from here. But we'll also, I don't know, we'll have some. I think, the camera guy just said 5-0, so we're at 5-0. Look at that. All right.
Maybe just
we'll do this, and then we'll explain what we do with progression.
So
We'll
many
see
things
what
and
happens.
just blast, dude.
All right. So I'm not gonna walk him through this. I'm just gonna show you exactly the same thing that myself and Jimmy just went through. All right. Are you ready? Stand by.
So I definitely healed into that one a little bit. My dot rised.
Stand by.
There it is.
I think the term you're looking for is rose,
Rose.
like Jesus.
Rosed.
Ooh, roasted.
Are you ready? Stand by.
That was my best one there. All right, off the trigger.
That was saucy.
Stand by.
Came down a little bit.
Down and right a little bit.
Yep.
Stand by.
There you go.
Nice.
Good.
Nice.
One more. Stand by.
Yep.
Nice.
All right, so I'm done talking. Yep. Let's do it.
I'm talking. This crew likes to talk. We like talking about shooting. So hopefully you guys like listening about shooting.
big-
That's why you're listening to a podcast about shooting.
Big shooting nerds over here. All right. Stand by. Stand by. Stand by.
All right.
Let's see. So those were 2-1, 2-0, 2-1. So I think you can be a little more aggressive on that
Yeah.
trigger, and less thinking, more shooting.
Yeah.
Chris, I don't know a lot about what your how your body mechanics are or whatever, but how's your left shoulder doing? It looked a little tense.
Yeah, it's super tense. I can tell you. My right shoulder is surprisingly not as tense. So we'll see what happens here.
Oh yeah, that's way
There we
different.
go.
That's
All
like
right.
visibly.
Same thing. Let's start touching the trigger. Stand by. Yeah. So now that's a little bit more accurate. That's a 0.2. Let's try to push the reaction time just a little bit more. Stand by. There you go. 15. Stand by. There we go. That,
Ooh, nice.
that last one was 18 right down Main Street. So if you want to holster up real quick. So Andy, down here, the first couple of shots here, I think it's just worth noting. First couple of shots are here. Kind of had him push that reaction speed a little bit. Had one here, and then his last one was right down Main Street there. So his last reaction time was a 0.18. So he's really getting on that trigger now, and his grip is holding up. So it's a good thing. All right, so finger all the way at the front of the trigger guard. Yep. Fast reaction time. Slap that trigger. Stand by. 2-1. Stand by. 2-0. All right, more right hand pinky pressure. Stand by. There we go. Brought it back down. 0.2. Stand by. And a 0.18.
That was
And
quick.
that was probably your best hit yet. So downrange.
Gotcha.
So for everybody watching, first couple of shots were kind of right up in here. Said maybe add some more right hand pinky pressure, see what that does for you. It brought it down, maybe a little overcorrection, and his last shot was right there. So again, right down the middle of the A zone, and that was in a 0.18. So
What I find so interesting, the more I've listened to you guys, the more I've watched you guys shoot and all that, and heard your conversations, and this is part of the reason why we're doing these podcasts this way. You guys will see impacts on a target, and a lot of times people will be like, oh, I was aiming down there, which right as the round went out of the barrel, yes, I guess you were. But I think originally probably you were aiming in a different place. And like you guys change things with your grip, and it changes where bullets impact on paper, right? So like other people are just like, oh, I'll change where I'm aiming. But you guys actually will, you know, everyone's always aiming for the middle, right? You guys change your grip, and it starts changing points of impact, which is just, it's a very interesting thing that I think a lot of people just, they don't even think about.
Yeah.
It's the complete opposite thing. So I've heard people say, whoa, like, you know, my gun shoots low left, or I always shoot low left, right? You know, pro tip, it's never the gun. It's always you. But if you are shooting low left, right, like I've literally heard people say, well, I always hit low left, so I just hold high right. And I'm like, oh no, like you're missing the whole point. Like if you just correct some technique stuff with, you know what, less than an hour we've been doing this, and we're already dialing in a bunch of different things that can, you know, help us out with that. So Kentucky windage, never the answer with pistol shooting.
Amen.
So
Can we say conceptually, because I feel like, you know, just in order to keep this at a normal podcast length, like I think at next episode or a future episode we can do what you guys would progress with, but just to give people an idea, maybe a teaser, if you will. Like I think you mentioned earlier on, right now we did this at 7. You guys would actually start taking this further back, as far as going back to 25 yards, maybe even?
Yeah.
I mean, that just seems, for doing a drill where you're just like mashing the trigger, that's like, whoa.
So what pushing this drill back does for me is it allows me to see exactly what my grip, like how big my grip can actually affect like my group size. Okay. Right? So if I go all the way back to 25 and my goal is to shoot alphas, right? Like I can almost guarantee that I would be able to keep them in this upper half of the A zone at 25 if I'm doing the right things with my grip up here, right? So if what I see back here at 7 is my dot just hovering on that exact letter A, back there at 25, like my eyesight, I can't see that like actual print of the letter A, but I do know where the A zone is located on this target, and so I can get it close to that, and I'm seeing any movement I see on the target, because the target's smaller, it's going to look more egregious. And then any little movement in my dot, when we come up here and actually check the hits, is going to be magnified. So if I saw my dot, so I'll just pick on Chris here, right? So if this shot here
at 25,
25 would probably be down here. Right? And these shots here would probably be up in here.
Yeah.
Right? So he would see a significant increase. So that grip, maybe, while he was getting away with some of those outside shots here at 7, at 25, there's even more work to be done where he could fix that. Now, some people will say, well, at 25, you know, the accuracy requirement is higher, the speed requirement is a little less. So from there, we can prep the trigger and press from there. That is absolutely a way. But I think the value of this drill, and again, we're doing this drill to isolate one specific skill, and that's the grip. That's a test. Like if you can slap the trigger from the front of the trigger guard at 25 yards and hold A-zone shots,
your grip,
like your grip is doing something really good. And if you push all the way back and then come back up to 7, like I would venture to guess that any one of us could stack shots right here in the credit card or in one of these little 1.5-inch circles, no problem.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Goosebumps thinking about it. Well, like I said, I think that's something that we can do in a future episode. So let us know in the comments how you guys like this format. Chris is going to come in here for the camera. Let us know how you like this format where we are doing shooting. We're talking about, you know, just all sorts of stuff shooting related, but we're doing it live with a little bit of live fire. Hopefully they didn't blow out your eardrums, you know, too, when the shooting actually happened. Anyway, yeah, thanks everybody for watching, and happy shooting out there. Get out to your range and train. We'll see you guys on the next one.
See ya.
That's a wrap, everybody. Hope you liked this topic. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and of course, subscribe right here because there's going to be plenty more to come. If there's topics you'd like to hear us go over on the Vortex Edge podcast in the future, you can let us know by commenting below or hitting us up on Instagram, which is @Vortex Edge. We'd love to hear your suggestions so we can be bringing you the kind of episodes and topics that you want to hear. Otherwise, we'll be seeing you on a future episode. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Bye.